Kubernetes. Kubernetes is an open source container orchestration platform, which basically allows for you to automate deployments, scaling, management of containerized application systems, you name it. It's a declarative way in which you can ensure that your systems will be deployed and maintained always in the same state and across any provider that you want. So in short, you control the platform. You control basically anything that you will deploy. You will control networking, you will control all that you need. You will have your manifest ready to deploy, which will bring you some advantages, but I'll get to that in a bit. So what is serverless?
Yeah. So when we talk about serverless, we're talking about a cloud execution model for service and also for functions. So we can have everything that we need without managing the servers, without managing the platform. So we just need to focus on the cloud, focus on deploying it, and not look into the network side, to the instances, getting those metrics. You don't need to worry about it. You just need to go and build. Comparing to the Kubernetes, we can say that you don't need to have that operational level that you usually have on Kubernetes side. So instead of having a team dedicated to control, deploy, and have the control of those resources, you don't need to have it on the serverless side. The developer can just go there, deploy the database, deploy the code to run, connect, and just be ready to that.
Well, yeah, I can see how those are something. Some might be advantage. I can see some as a disadvantage, at least from Kubernetes. Nowadays, systems tend to be more complex, tend to be changing really, really fast. And with Kubernetes having that control and scalability and flexibility to be able to choose your runtime, control your networking, control how big or small your system is going to be. You can make use of stateful sets and persistent data, persistent volumes, basically, which will allow for you to have an entire Kubernetes self-sustained application, because we used to have some issues with providing databases, for example. Now we can have those as a containerized version as well. And so Kubernetes allows for that. And having that portability, I think, is one of the main advantages. So let's say I have the same manifest, the same Helm chart, that will work across any vendor. It can work on AWS with their managed services, EKS, the same for Google with GKE, the same for Azure with AKS. Even on-prem, the same manifest will work for all of those. So it's portable, it's scalable. I think you can't beat that as an advantage.
Yeah, we could say that, but also you need to manage the cluster. So you need to manage the versions, you need to manage the APIs inside the cluster, you need to manage the whole structure around it. So it's not like getting your deployment and deploying on AWS easily. You just need to go there and deploy your cluster first, configure your cluster, and just have everything in place before start deploying the applications. So when we look to the serverless, we still can use stateful applications. We can integrate storage. We can have databases as serverless. So we can just connect everything together. But you need to think in a serverless way. You are not getting the same application that you are building to Kubernetes and deploy it on serverless side. You need to build your applications targeting the serverless architecture. So you don't need to manage, you need to know the constraints, because when we say serverless, we are not getting the no server, but we still have servers, but they are managed by the cloud provider. Some of the misconception that we can see on that is something that we can think about it, something like the vendor lock-in on functions that we can have the cold starts. So we need to be aware of those boundaries that you have on the serverless side, but you still need the whole flexibility to deploy your code, to build whatever you want on that.
Yeah, I can see that, but that's also a disadvantage. So you're basically restricting yourself. You are less flexible. With Kubernetes, you can choose your runtime. With serverless, you are dependent on what runtime the provider actually grants you, because as you were saying, yes, there are servers, even though it's called serverless, and on those servers that are being provided, you have limitations. So I think that's a big limitation for serverless still. And for Kubernetes, you have the flexibility to choose whatever you want to use. You were talking about simplicity. with serverless, and I think that's a misconception for Kubernetes, because people tend to make it to be a big complex thing where you need a big company and a big team behind it to manage it. I think that might have been true a few years ago. Now I think that's not the case, because managed services have been evolving, and cloud providers all have their own managed Kubernetes service for you to use. It's a platform. And so the entry level is lower, and you are abstracting yourself from a lot of the management from Kubernetes. You just perform your Helm, you create your Helm chart, you create your manifest, you deploy it, and it's the same every time. Independent.
It still costs.
It still has cost. Yeah. I mean,
so you have the whole operational layer. It will cost something to you. Idle servers, idle resources, they will all cost something to you. It's not like something cheap that you only pay for that what you're using, but you are paying for the whole infrastructure.
You are. With proper management, that can be mitigated. So you can have shutdown rules. You have undeployment and deployments being scheduled at night, for example, to save some costs if you can. You can have all of those. In serverless, costs tend to be lower. If you see by like the metric of the single cost, it might be lower. But if you accumulate all the runs that you run in serverless, you might be surprised with the underlying costs that some people get surprised with.
But if you add your costs related to the team that you need to manage the Kubernetes, I think it's higher than the serverless.
It depends on how you see it. I think the teams have been getting smaller and smaller, because I was saying it's easier to get into Kubernetes nowadays, but you still have them. Yes, you can run from those. But the flexibility and control over it, I think just no function as a service can match that control and flexibility that ultimately Kubernetes grants you, even though if it comes at some cost. Yes.
Yeah, you need to put in a scale. You have less control of the infra, of the platform, but you ship faster. You go time to market. You need to be there. You need to deploy that feature. Go with serverless. You don't need to have one architect, the whole operational team to build the Kubernetes, to plan and maintain that.
Yeah, I think we're reaching a point where we can say both work, both serve their purpose, and as any good engineer or professional should do, you shouldn't pick sides. You should actually pick the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pick the right one.